Hi, my name is Adnan Hasbi and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Rambling of an Analyst. I know 2020 has been a very difficult year for many people, and I'm actually recording this particular episode on the 31st of December 2020. And I think the difficulty will come from maybe some people which are working. We saw some people being let go, and also salaries have been cut for certain people. Not only that, but even in the investment space, we see certain products giving less returns this year. And amongst the products we're going to focus on is ASB, where this year, 2020, we saw ASB giving dividends lower than the 5% mark if we have maybe 100,000 ringgit. So much so, I've been reading a lot of reports with regards to some people having negative cash flows for their ASB financing. So in today's episode, we're going to look as to whether it is possible to have a negative cash flow and what should one do if they have a negative cash flow for their ASB financing. So but before that, let us look at the ASB track record since the year 1990. And we can see that ASB has been giving good dividends in the 1990s. Having said that, during the 2000s, we can see it drop a little bit, but it still hovered around the 8 to 9% region. Having said that, however, the last couple of years, we could see that the ASB dividends has been dropping. And as I mentioned, 2020, for those who has about 100,000 units, their ASB dividends could be a bit lower than that. So the next thing is to answer whether it is possible to have negative cash flow with regards to your ASB investing. To answer that, let us look at this little chart over here, which is the OPR chart. And the OPR chart is basically the reference rate which the bank uses when lending out money. So the OPR rate, say back in 2007 and maybe as far back as 2005, right, has been relatively high. And as we can see over here, it has been one of the higher points for the OPR. So if we were to take a loan during this particular period, chances are our loan will be relatively expensive. Let us say we took a loan in 2005 and say at that point in time, the interest rate for that particular loan is about 4.2%, assuming. But having said that, since the ASB returns or the ASB dividends is about 9%, we will be relatively happy. And one of the reasons why is that the spread or the difference between the dividend and also the interest is relatively healthy. So if we take dividends of 9% and if we were to minus against our borrowing cost of 4.2%, that would be a difference of maybe 4.8, I think. So assuming if we had that particular loan and it's year 2020, right? Let us see what may happen. So over here, I just did a quick and simple calculation. I used a financial calculator, which I found on the internet. And I assume that we have a loan of 100,000 ringgit. The interest rate, as I mentioned to you, is about 4.2% and is a 30-year loan, right? Over here, it says that the monthly payment is about 489 ringgit. And so if we take this 489 ringgit, I round it up to 490. And if we were to multiply it by 12, that will equal to about 5,880 for our annual interest that we have to pay to the bank. And as I mentioned to you, this year, the dividends for ASB has dropped. And over here is the dividends given by ASB. And this is the second chart which ASB gave an illustration. Assuming if someone has 100,000 unit, they will get 4,475 ringgit. So over here, we can see that there is a negative cash flow. As I mentioned to you, in terms of cash flow, we have to pay the bank as much as about 5,800 ringgit. But having said that, the dividend is about 4,475. So there is a negative cash flow. In case if you're wondering how can this happen, typically if we put 200,000 and we leave that money in there, the interest will compound. So if we left that money untouched for the past 15 years, what will happen is that there is the principal amount and also the compounding of 15 years. And if we were to get dividends of 4.475, what will happen is that it will compound on the principal and also the compounded amount of 15 years. But having said that, how someone can get negative cash flow is when they constantly take out their dividends so as to use it as their spending lifestyle. Meaning to say, as of 2020, that particular person has only 200,000 to compound their 4.475. So in that instance, it is theoretically possible to get negative cash flow from our ASB investing. But if someone is a disciplined investor, this may happen to them, whereby they invest as much as 100,000, and dividends, I'm assuming a very low dividend of 5%, and they were to keep it for 30 years. What may happen is that they will get a return of 446,000 ringgit. And if I were to minus it with all the proceeds that we paid off, the prospective investor will get as much as 270,000 ringgit. Okay, so what are the main lessons one can learn from over here? Number one, if we were to invest, it is relatively prudent to let the investment grow. And over here, we can see the power of compounding dividends. That's the first thing. The second thing that I want to say is ASB underlying assets are stocks. So if the performance of the stock market has been relatively poor this year, always remember whatever goes down must always go up. So don't take this dividend as the norm. Maybe it's an outlier. Okay, so with that, guys, take care, and I hope to see you guys in the next episode.